Marlowe and Shakespeare walk into a bar. So runs the beginning of a joke that the playwright Tom Stoppard concocted in 1997 about playwriting. Stoppard was, at that point, working on the screenplay for Shakespeare in Love, a film that, to a remarkable degree, concerns itself with the kind of questions usually left to literary critics. Why did Shakespeare become a tragic dramatist? Where did he find his voice? Where did the idea for Romeo and Juliet come from? In the end, Shakespeare in Love answers these questions along fairly conventional Hollywood lines. Love, it turns out, is the answer. Love, it turns out, explains Shakespeare's genius. But before the movie gets there, Marlowe and Shakespeare walk into a bar.
And the chinks to show for it, I insist. A beaker for Mr. Marlowe. I hear you have a new play for the curtain.
Not new, my Dr. Faustus.
I love your early work. Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burnt the topless towers of Ilium?
I have a new one nearly finished and better. The Massacre at Paris.
Good title.
Yours?
Romeo and Ethel, the pirate's daughter. Yes, I know.
What is the story?
Well, there's this pirate. In truth, I've not written a word.
Romeo. Romeo is Italian. Always in and out of love.
Yes, that's good, until he meets
Ethel.
Do you think?
The daughter of his enemy.
The daughter of his enemy.
His best friend is killed in a duel by Ethel's brother. Or something. His name is Mercutio.
Mercutio. Good name.
Will, they're waiting for you.
Yes, I'm coming. Good luck with yours, kid.
This fall, I ran a tutorial that was, in my own mind at least, a restaging of Stoppard's joke. Every week, Marlowe and Shakespeare walked into my office. Every week, we brought the two playwrights into contact. Over the term, we read 4 of Shakespeare's plays, 4 of Marlowe's, and their 2 long narrative love poems, Venus and Adonis, Hero and Leander. The point of the tutorial was not to prove anything particular about Marlowe or Shakespeare, but to run an experiment. What happens when these 2 playwrights, who lived side by side and who may or may not ever have actually met each other, are read side by side? What happens when Marlowe and Shakespeare walk into a bar? Today, I'm going to restage Stoppard's joke in a slightly different form. I'm going to put into conversation 2 passages, one representing Marlowe, one representing Shakespeare, and see what they have to say to each other. The passage on your left comes from Marlowe. It is from his 1589 play, The Jew of Malta. And it features the play's eponymous hero, a Jewish merchant named Barabbas. Barabbas is, when the play begins, fantastically wealthy. Far and away the richest man in all of Malta. So great is Barabbas's accumulated wealth that, in the play's opening speech, he says he finds the counting of it tedious. Then, barely 100 lines into the play, Barabbas loses everything. His ships, his goods, his wealth, they're all stripped from him. He is turned out of his house, which is converted into a nunnery. This happens because the Christians of Malta need money to pay off the Turks, and because Barabbas, as a Jew, is an easy target. This is the entire explanation for Barabbas's dispossession. Marlowe makes no effort to disguise or ameliorate the Christians' motives. In the passage on your left, Barabbas gives voice to his loss. Even as the other Jews urge patience, Barabbas insists on being heard, insists on expressing himself. He wants his audience to know what he is feeling, to share imaginatively in his disgrace. And so he compares himself to a captain in a field of battle whose weapons have been stripped from him and whose soldiers lie dead at his feet. Shouldn't such a man be allowed to grieve? What Barabbas asks may seem to us unremarkable, but was hardly so in 1589. The action that takes place fictively at Malta echoes the actual dispossession of the English Jews. Much as Barabbas is stripped of his wealth and turned out of his home, so were the Jews of England dispossessed and exiled by Edward I, turned out of their country as so many strangers and aliens. In the crowd that Barabbas addressed in the Rose Theatre in 1589, there was not a single Jew to hear him, not a single Jew to weep, as the Jews weep in Marlowe's play. When Marlowe allows those Jews to express their sympathy for Barabbas as if it were a basic human impulse, 'tis a misery to see a man in such affliction, Marlowe is doing something surprising by the standards of his time, something bordering on illegal. The second passage, the passage on your right, is from The Merchant of Venice. Many of you will recognize it as Shylock's famous Rialto speech. Shylock's idiom is different, of course, from Barabbas's. Still, the influence of Marlowe's play, which precedes Shakespeare's by some 7 or 8 years, is hard to miss. Again, a Jew steps forward to describe his mistreatment. Again, a Jew speaks his pain aloud to an audience that is asked imaginatively to enter into it. And again, this invitation to empathize exposes a contradiction. Antonio, the nominal hero of The Merchant of Venice, has with his Christian friends scorned Shylock. They have laughed at his daughter Jessica's desertion. They have spit upon him in the street, and they have done so without compunction. Shylock's degradation does not touch them as they understand it, because as they understand it, he is different from them. He is merely a Jew, an alien, a stranger. Dog Jew is one of their favorite epithets for Shylock. And yet, when Shylock's pain is made visible on the stage, made alive in his language, this justification fails. To suffer is not to be a Jew or a Christian, but to be human. In his vulnerability, Shylock is no different from his persecutors. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you poison us, do we not die? That Marlowe and Shakespeare both allow their Jews to make this point suggests, I think, a shared understanding on their part about the peculiar enterprise they are engaged in. Both playwrights recognize in theater's singular capacity to make emotion accessible, a means of dissolving or overcoming difference. When a character speaks his pain, when he performs it, an audience feels it and in the process becomes like him, if only momentarily. Put even a Jew on stage, and so long as he speaks movingly, we can recognize ourselves in him. This is what Marlowe and Shakespeare are telling each other. This is what Shakespeare takes from Marlowe. Or at least this is the part of their conversation about Jews and the theater. This is part of that conversation about Jews and the theater, the easiest and most palatable part of it. As I noted earlier, the Jews in Marlowe's play exit with tears in their eyes. Barabbas bids them farewell and then alone takes possession of the stage. Once alone, Barabbas steps out further, close to the very edge of the theater, or at least this is how I picture it. He moves close to the edge of the stage, right up to the crowd of theatergoers gathered at his feet. And once there, he taunts them. See the simplicity of these base slaves, who, for the villains, have no wit themselves, think me to be a senseless lump of clay that will with every water wash to dirt. This is a violent speech, violent in its contempt. Barabbas's contempt for the Jews who have felt for him, who have wept for him. Marlowe's contempt for the members of his audience who, like the Jews, have been reached by Barabbas' words and moved by his suffering. All at once, that suffering is revealed to be a sham, an empty spectacle. Barabbas has not lost everything. As he subsequently reveals, he still has a fortune hidden away. He is not broken or wretched. He has merely played misery like an actor on the stage. What he is after is not empathy, but power. The power to manipulate an audience and so in the process degrade it and debase it. The Jews who pity Barabbas become to Barabbas so many base slaves, so many witless villains, because they misunderstand him and the nature of human suffering. That we suffer in common is nothing to be proud of. Just the contrary, says Barabbas. To suffer is a sign of our common dust, or to use his nastier phrase, our common dirt. To suffer is to be dirt. To empathize with suffering is to be a villain and a slave. Barabbas' treachery and contempt are ugly. And indeed, much of the Jew of Malta is ugly. Much of Marlowe's art is ugly. At another moment in the play, Barabbas will wipe out an entire convent of nuns, including his own daughter, with a gift of poisoned porridge. He will strangle a friar in his bed and then gleefully sit up the corpse in the street as if it were alive. That we bridle at such ugliness is the point. We come to the theater expecting to be flattered, expecting to be confirmed in the happiest, most hopeful account of who we are. After all, we bought a ticket. And instead, we are betrayed and attacked. And what of Shakespeare? What of his Jew? What of Shylock? How does he follow up his eloquent plea for understanding, for fellow feeling? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why revenge? If Barabbas opens his heart as a prelude to violence, the same can be said of Shylock. We may cite his stirring lines out of context to teach lessons about the importance of empathy and the value of art as a means of combating prejudice, but that's not their function, or at least not their entire function in Shakespeare's play. In The Merchant of Venice, Shylock delivers his moving speech and seems moved as he delivers it. As he speaks, he appears present in his words in the way that few of us ever are in real life. And yet, what in the end does he speak up for? Not empathy, not sympathy, but revenge. This is a surprising turn, a disorienting turn, perhaps a disappointing turn. When it comes, we don't expect it, just as we don't expect Barabbas to voice his misery and then, all of a sudden, jeer at us. And yet, the turn in Shylock's speech is logical. Empathy and revenge may, in a superficial sense, seem opposites. Empathy may even seem to preclude revenge. But really, underneath it all, they are two sides of the same coin. Two expressions of the same underlying pattern. In empathizing, I make myself like you by feeling what you feel, by knowing what you know, by suffering what you suffer. In revenge, I make you like me. I force you to know what I know. I force you to feel what I feel. I force you to suffer what I suffer. Shylock does not want empathy. He wants revenge. He wants the power to compel identification. He wants the ability to force another to see the world on his terms. And more than that, he claims this desire of his to be the same as ours. According to Shylock, what links us as humans is not suffering or the capacity to empathize with another's suffering, but the common human compulsion to answer suffering with revenge. He wants, and we want, the power to make others feel as we do. And this is, I think, his point of contact with Shakespeare and Shakespeare and any other serious writer, any artist who doesn't merely want to please his audience, but to reach it, to move it, whether that audience wants to be moved or not. And by serious artist, let me be clear here, I don't mean respectable high culture artist, if anything, just the opposite. The ambition I'm talking about is the ambition to find some sharp or blunt instrument that will allow you to compel an emotion in someone else, to force an understanding by whatever means is available. This is, I think, what Marlowe and Shakespeare's Jews are talking about, the search for power that often masquerades as empathy. This is, I believe, what Marlowe teaches Shakespeare, or at least it is the substance of this particular barroom lesson. It is in this particular small room what they hear each other saying about theater and about us. Thanks.